Ring her off. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Autism Confidential, the podcast from the National Council on Severe Autism. I am Jill Escher. I am the president of NCSA, and I'm your host today. And today, oh my gosh, when I look out in the world and I see what people are doing in the autism world, whether it's schooling or whether it's adult services or whether it's advocacy or whether it's recreation or whatever, or research, there are a few people who come to mind who are really incredibly heroic and fantastic and innovative and really making a measurable difference in their community. And we have one of those people today, Jackie Ceonzo. Jackie, welcome to Autism Confidential.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks for that really kind intro. I don't feel very heroic, but that's very kind of you.
Oh, but you absolutely are. I mean, if we have like the pantheon of gods and goddesses, we should do that for autism. Jackie would be one of those little goddesses in the pantheon.
Just surviving is that,
Just surviving. I know, really. Every autism parent would be somewhere in that pantheon, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Jackie is on the other coast from where I am. She is in New York City.
Yes, ma'am.
And one of my favorite places. And she is the mother of an adult son named Joey, who has a severe form of autism. She also has another son named Andrew, who doesn't have autism, but who is in law school. Woohoo! Join the club. And she started a really phenomenal program in New York City called Snack NYC. And you're about to learn all about it, but you're also about to learn about many of the obstacles, barriers, and sheer nonsense that make running these programs very, very challenging. And hopefully, I hope listeners will be both inspired by Jackie and also dismayed at the insanity, right, that she faces to provide a very necessary service. Okay, so I want you to be happy and sad. Isn't that nice of me?
So I think we roll all the time.
Yeah,
right?
all the time. So Jackie, welcome. Let's start off. Let's hear a little bit about you and your family, and then let's start off with that. Then go into how you started Snack.
Sure. Okay. So Snack is 20 years old, which I can't believe. But my husband and I met at Villanova, and two wildcats, got married. Our first baby, Joe, 18 months out of the chute, starts having seizures. Infant seizures they don't really look like seizures, so we didn't really know that at the time. So you're talking, this is 1997. Autism wasn't really even on the radar yet to the extent that it is now. So he gets diagnosed, we go through the early intervention process, and then autism, ABA, all these things get introduced. We did the whole center-based EI. Unfortunately, his seizure disorder was like our prevalent concern, because he was seizing, hundreds of times a day in these myoclonic spurts. That was just awful. We went everywhere trying to fix it. 4 years later, I have Andrew. Every time he moved, I was like, he's having a seizure. He can't talk. Call the doctor. Andrew is fine for whatever that is, but very common when there's another child, especially a boy, that we could have had another issue. Fast forward again, Andrew's about 4, and he has a dance card filled like I've never seen. Parties, soccer classes, all these great things. And I realized Joe's never done a damn thing. Joe goes to therapy all week. What kind of life is this for a 7-year-old? So I started to say, okay, I'm going to take you swimming, Joe. Take Joe for a special needs swimming class, and we get rejected. To say I was livid is the understatement of the century. I was like, well, okay, so you want to tell me where we go then? If he can't come to the special needs program, where do we go? Well, we don't mean
special.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't mean that special.
Extra special.
He doesn't talk. He doesn't say anything. I was like, no, nothing, nada. So lo and behold.
How old is he now again? I'm sorry.
Joe's 28.
He's 28. Yeah. So you were very much in the kind of the leading edge.
Yes.
Of
The
autism
first
surge.
wave of the explosion of I think it
Yeah.
started in 92, if I look back at the kids we have, but yeah,
Mhm.
Joe's definitely at the top, which has been very hard for us because I've really not had that many people ahead of me to tell me
Mhm.
what to do. Never mind the severity end of it. That's not been that common either. As much as it is, I couldn't find people at the beginning of the journey. So Snack really began in a basement for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon. I thought to myself, well, if I can get an ABA therapist, at the time it was $150 an hour, 6
Mm.
kids, and we'll whack it up amongst the parents. And, how bad can this be? Well, that was very naive of me to think from a funding perspective. It's a costly program to run. I mirrored it after I had a lot of great, resources here. What would be an ideal afternoon for Joe and people like him who are not verbal. So it was, art, music,
Mhm.
some sort of snack, and some sort of movement, exercise, something of that nature.
Hmm.
So we did 44 30-minute segments, well thought out, lots of visual supports, lots of great people helping us to make the kids be successful. And for many of the kids, just being able to participate is success without
Mhm.
running out of the room, taking off their clothes, biting somebody else. We were created for the biters,
Yeah.
which I often said, because lots of parents will say, oh, I don't know if these are the right kids for us. I'm like, no, they're not the right kids for you. Well, we're for them. So if you're not comfortable, then you must have
Right.
other options, but we don't. So that's been a
Yep.
real long, hard debate. And I often say, I know you want your kid with the neurotypical kids, and the neurotypical kids don't want to be with you. And we want to just be with your kid who can say a few words. So can't we all just get along? But it never works out that way.
Mhm.
So that was really how Snack began. I rented space, hired these folks. It was 2 hours a week. And here we are, 20 years later, we've expanded the programming from this 2 hour play date, for lack of a better word, to now we have a full service programming from age 3 to 21, and now 21 plus. We added programming before we expanded locations, because we wanted to grow with our kids. It's not like our kids, say, thanks, I'm really like Snack and I know how to swim now and I'm not coming back. They stay, they grow with you. The next thing you
Mhm.
know, they all have beards. It happened. That's the way it all worked out. So we added swimming and we added sports and now we do just classes, hour-long
Give
classes.
us some examples of the activities that you offer, and you're center based. Now, it's
Yes,
not like
we
you're in
are.
a basement anymore.
No, we've moved on.
Yeah.
I'm in almost the end of my second 10-year lease. The nerve of me. I
So
was
tell
working at
people,
the
a lot of
textile
people
business.
know New York. So give us a sense of where you are in New York.
We're in Midtown right now, 53rd Street. We're like down the block from Rockefeller Center. The UN is a few steps away. We're
Oh, you're
happening
right in Midtown. Wow.
right in Midtown.
That's not cheap real estate.
No, ma'am. And we're renting. We haven't been
Yeah.
able to we haven't been able to buy yet. We've had other factors that were more important to us than
Mm,
purchasing. It's in our docket now. 20 years we've made it. Banks
yeah.
don't lend to not-for-profits. There's so much stuff that has to go on there, but our model was based on fees. I had taken Joey to a lot of programs that were volunteer run, soccer classes, various things, special needs focused and volunteer run, and very well intentioned. But it was Groundhog Day. Every day it was, every week it's 20 kids running after the same ball, and the volunteers were different every week. And that really doesn't work with autism. You need consistency and repetition and all that kind of good stuff. So we have
Now,
a
I
day.
sorry, I interrupted
Mhm.
you after I asked you, like, give me some examples of the programming that you
Oh,
offer.
okay.
So sorry, go back to
Sure,
that.
sure. We'll jump back. So some of the programming that we have is based on what Joey responds to, is how it starts, and then we evolve based on what the kids like. So
Mhm.
cooking, a life skill. A lot of the kids have food eating issues, so it's a good opportunity to present that. So we collaborate with a cooking group here in the city that does a great job, knows our population, and it works out real well. Cooking, art, in the beginning, most of the kids' fine motor skills are not necessarily that great. but we have some real artists. I've been really surprised all the time at how great the art program is. And then as a subset, we're Manhattan, so we can collaborate with the Met Museum. They will send in a teacher, she'll do a set, then we'll go to the Met, look at what she talked about, then we'll come back and we'll do, another class around it. The New York Public Library, we collaborate with. We have a book club. Joe can't read or write, but he loves to be read too, as do many of the kids. And some of the kids can read, so we make that work. What else do we have? Exercise, of course. Many of the kids are on lots of meds, Joe being one of them. And weight gain is a big issue.
Weight gain, for sure.
Huge issue with the psychotropic drugs. So exercise is so important. So we have various things. We've got personal trainers who run actual, and it's all hand over hand, or, we're a one-to-one program because that's what our guys need for the most part. Yoga adapted so that the kids can participate. Music, big, favorite, we'll cycle through and throughout the year with a percussion class, or a, piano based, or it's singing, or it's karaoke, or whatever. It's all, every lead in each of these classes is, trained in their particular discipline, not necessarily for this population, because sometimes bringing in folks who have no idea, we got a lot of Broadway people here and stuff. It's just, it changes things up. It's so they have no limits on the kids. And it works. It's great. So that's the bulk of the classes. And we run a huge swimming program. I added that.
What pool do you use? I'm curious.
Believe it or not, do you remember the movie Arthur with Dudley Moore? And he has the fist fight with the bride's father. It's St. Bartholomew's Church where they got married. That's where the pool.
Oh, really?
So they're in that side vestibule. That's where they have a full pool and a basketball court. Nobody. And the pool
right there in Manhattan.
Right there, unbelievable. I mean, it's not Olympic size, but it's huge, and it has a deep end, and it works. And we take the whole pool. I mean, there's a lot of pools in the city that have, JCCs and the usual YMCAs that have pools available and swim lessons. But, our kids with the sound and all the smell of the chlorine, of the sensory overload is just, and I am not here to have our kids be on display. Their dignity and the respect for their privacy is very important to us and to our families. So we want to give them their best opportunity. So we rent the whole pool, which financially doesn't make sense because we'll only have 8 to 10 kids in the pool at a time with a one-to-one instructor, but it works and they learn how to swim. So we had one young lady jump into the East River, which can happen, with our kids. They always they get away and they seem to seek a body of water. Just, God's a trickster. But this young lady was able to get to the side and be rescued. So, swimming is not a joke. All of our kids should learn how to swim. If nothing else, it's just to get to the side, to be saved if it happens. So that's a huge part of our program. So we run that 4 or 5 days a week, and we run 48 weeks a year. And we run those 3 weeks in August when there's no school, because, there's nothing. And I know for me personally, by that second week in August, when Joe had no school, I was ready to pull my hair out. It's just he doesn't do well practicing being autistic when he's got nothing else to do.
August, everyone says August is the worst month.
Bane of our existence.
Families,
exactly. Yes. Next to the holidays, next to the, those are also fun. But we try to be there for families, to fill that void and fill that gap, running classes. And our staff is just tremendous. They're, like I said, not some of them this is what they're going to school for, or they're working at a school, but a lot of them are not. And they just, intuitively connect and know what to do. We've all hired people we've seen like that to work with our kids. There's just people who have that intuition and that knack. And we've been very fortunate to have so very many wonderful staff come through our doors over the years. And a good portion of them are still with me, I have a couple of people with me over 10 years.
That's incredible. So about how many clients do you think you've served over all these years?
Well, let's put it this way. Every week, we're running 60 hours of programming. So in every hour, I've got probably 24 kids somewhere, either at the pool or, in groups of six times, maybe 3 or 4 cohorts, 7 days a week. And then we do free trials constantly, because I know I didn't trust anybody, which is why I started my own program. So when a mom calls or a dad calls and says, I want to try it, we welcome that. And I get it, because nobody believes that the kid's going to be able to, that we are what we say we are.
Right. I mean, if your kids like my son, you're rejected from everything. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody's expectation is when they come through doors. So we're very open and say, you try us. We have no intake, because any intake I've ever gone through with Joey fails.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to tell somebody you can't come to Snack because your child's needs are too great. If we have to hire another person, that's what we'll do.
Amazing.
But how do you fund this? How do you fund this? So our model is, we've based the fees. I based the fees on what my other son Andrew's classes were. If Andrew went swimming, what is it? I'm not going to have a, autism surcharge, it's, even though we can only have a small group of people. So that's what we do. That's what we charge, whatever is like a market rate for a swim class or a music class or what have you. And then we fundraise for the difference. And some families can help, some families can't. And, that's how we make it work. And, with this new Medicaid funding stream here in New York, I think it's everywhere, self-direction. I think all the states call it different things. Our classes are now reimbursable under some categories of this Medicaid model. So that's really opened access tremendously for a lot of people. And even if people couldn't afford it, we do have great funders, and we have a financial aid, portion that we'll try to do. I believe that everybody has to pay something, and there is no free scholarship. We've done that. People take advantage of it. They got to have skin in the game. You got to show up. If I have a staff member there, and you didn't pay for it, and you don't come, I'm furious. So even if it's $20, you got to have skin in the game. So that has served me well. That we have volunteers, but the volunteers are an addition, not running the programming. They're there for peer modeling or what have you, but not because it doesn't work.
You have dedicated trained staff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a different thing. I was telling you that, I've run Autism Society San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm currently their events chair. And I've done easily more than 200 events, right, in our local community, but not your model. Like, we don't have staff, right? Everything, there's no drop off.
Yeah,
the parents have to stay there, for whatever it is. Yeah. And but I completely admire what you're doing. I beyond admire what you're doing, because I know the level of complexity involved is astronomical, unbelievable. Like, you can send rockets to the moon, and I think it's easier than what you are doing.
Well, I so appreciate that, because one of the lines in all of our grant proposals is, what we do every week is not easy. I say that with all the truth that there is. It's very complicated. So your question before was how many kids a week? So there's about 225 participant slots that we have. So unique individuals is well over 100. So in a given year, in 20 years, we've seen 1,000 families. I'm most sure of it. I'm most sure of it.
And most of them live in Manhattan, or do they come from?
No, they come from all over, because we're so unique. We have people who come from Westchester.
You're not only unique in New York, I would say you're unique in the United States.
Yeah, well, it's
hard
funny
to find programs that serve the severe autism population.
Our population, we're all night stalkers of the internet, so lots of people find us, right? So I have met some fantastic people all over the country. Jackie, how do I start a snack? Will you start a snack out here? So I've never charged for that. I've helped a million people start something similar, what's in their area, what's best we can do. And I help people to do that. And yeah, I'd love snack. I mean, I had often hoped that, with Autism Speaks, that a snack in every community that needed one would be one of their things. But as they went on, once they got past awareness and research, so still one of my hopes that one of these big places that's autism committed will make we need a center-based program everywhere. We need a YMCA that's for our kids, we need,
YMCA, that's for our kids.
yeah, that's what we need, and we should,
Yeah.
and don't talk to me about integrating it, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
We're
No.
open to everybody, but it needs to be designed and staffed so our kids can succeed, but everybody's welcome.
I
Always
know, I
welcome.
feel like it's saying like, sorry, wheelchair users can't use ramps. Because
Yeah,
that's special,
right.
or people who are blind can't use Braille because that's
Right.
like disability specific. And it's like, it's so absurd. The mentality is so absurd. I mean, it's just all this wishful thinking seems to wash over reality.
Oh, well, our kids are just being left out. There's no two ways about it. And I've made it my business in this, last 12 years of advocating. And when you speak to legislators and you speak to people who are in a position to really care for the most vulnerable, they're shocked to hear the nonsense that our families are subject to.
Yeah.
They blame CMS and CMS to feds, and the feds blame the state. And in the meantime, our kids are stuck in no man's land. So that's something as families, we just all need to rally around and get this message. That article you just wrote was, so incredible. And that needs to be spread everywhere, that this is our end of the spectrum has got to be, much more in the forefront.
I agree. I mean, I think people are just sick and tired of all the BS around autism. I feel
Without
people are
question.
just done. Like, can we please talk realistically, right, about our children? Which is not to deny, the needs of those on the high end of the spectrum, of course. But why should we have to sugarcoat, what's happening with our kids?
One size does not fit all. I mean, for God's sake, why do we have to, what I mean? It's like, I don't know, is it Allison Singer who often, says things like, when you say you have cancer, people say, where is it? What stage? Autism, you say autism, like, that's it. There should be which end, how far? And then I'm so, the politically correct thing. It's my son. Don't tell me what I can and cannot say.
I know.
And I have to say he's high support needs or I offend people. How about if I'm offended?
No, I am going to language police you till the end of time, Jackie. Because that's the most important thing in autism, is to make sure we only use neutral terms. I mean, it's so absurd. And I'm just so glad that piece I wrote,
it's getting traction
because people are like, yeah, Jill, say it, baby.
Right on. Exactly. Exactly. And the big piece, obviously, with Snack is when, Joe was approaching 21. What was I going to do with it? I when I first started it, my intention was just for him to have something to do like his brother, like typical kids do, just where he could be successful. Then I didn't realize, many parents had said to me, wait till he's 21 and you see, you think there's nothing now. Holy Shinola, I had no idea what we were in for. The cliff is massive. So it just stopped. And none of the schools do a good job, as far as I'm concerned, preparing you for that.
No, they really don't.
No, and it's, I hate to say, I don't blame them. They've got a large task at hand, but we did the private school route here, suing and getting reimbursed because there was nothing appropriate in the public schools. And even they, because of Joey's severe need, working on getting him into volunteer opportunities and things, they were just trying to get him to stop aggressing against everybody, so the priorities become, and you got to deal with what you have at hand. So as he became 21, when he was about 18, we started this e-commerce site on our website. We opened up a coffee business, Cup of Joe. Aren't we just so creative? And because Joe's skill set is, he can label a bag of coffee, he can label the bag of the shipping bag, and but the other kids can pull the orders offline. They can take inventory. So we've got this big e-commerce site on our website where.
And please tell everybody your website.
Oh, it's snacknyc.com. I'm not a .org because I stupidly started this as a for-profit thinking it was going to self-sustain, but that didn't work out. So then I had to hit the begging circuit to keep it going. So we sell lots of different things. So that was our first foray into the adult world while the kids were still in school, because I wanted to test the waters. So we collaborated with schools, because during the day I wasn't using our space because most of our kids were in school.
Mm-hmm.
We started with like a pre-vocational thing, so the kids would come from school in their classes with their teachers and the vocational coaches and what have you, and we put together this business. So by the time they were 21 and transitioned, we were set up and we had customers, and we had this business. So that was one part. So part of their day is running the business, and then they're taking these classes. And we've collaborated with Columbia University. They will hire our guys to work in the print shop or in the dining hall. We've just added a print shop on site at Snack. So that work piece, it's something I struggle with myself for Joe, because I'm like, does Joe want to work, or do I push him into working because it's what you're supposed to do,
Right.
based on his skills, and he doesn't really take public transportation. It's not easy for him. And in New York, we're struggling still since the pandemic. It's not the safest place in the world. So, and you don't need, Joe having a meltdown on the subway right now. So,
Yeah, we've heard a couple New York stories over here.
yeah, not a
Although
fun time.
yeah, not fun.
We're all struggling. I mean, all the major cities are struggling with all these different things post-pandemic. But so I don't know. The work thing is a work in progress, no pun intended. But
Mm-hmm.
we have made some great. We facilitated some great relationships amongst our members that are over 21. So the two guys and their ComHab guy, they'll go to lunch together. So they don't, they're not paying for every opportunity that they have at Snack. There's a local rec center that has a pool and a gym. So guys will go over and with the staff and have a pickup basketball game. Or some of the kids will swim. It's $25 if you're disabled. It's the best deal in the city. Truthfully. So we're doing those things right now. And we're getting back into the community, like your events. We're starting to do those again. We rent a movie theater, like those sensory movies. We do it ourselves because we could never frankly get into the ones that are run by certain groups here. So we just do our own. We go to the museums. We are all over the place. To me, that's integration. You walk down 53rd Street, you see all the kids with Snack t-shirts on. I walk into the local D'Agostino's, the supermarket, and they're like, is it Taco Tuesday? The kids coming in to get the stuff for tacos? It's great. That to me is, we are very much part of the community, but appropriately so, and safe and happy, which is all I really want.
Exactly. So let's talk about, what I mentioned in my introductory comments, some of the very shall I say, inconvenient barriers you are facing to sustaining your programming, especially for the adults. Can you give people a sense, because a lot of them care a lot about these programs, and they should know about some of the assaults, right, that you're facing because of bad policy. Can you kind of thumbnail that for them?
Sure. Well, in New York State, we have the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. It's their responsibility to manage these home and community-based waivers and what have you, for guys like Joe and for the kids that come to Snack. And all of our kids qualify for the most part. We do have some kids that are not OPWDD eligible for various reasons. But for the kids that are, OPWDD is who, is responsible. In January of this year, we got word from some of our families that the fiscal intermediaries who are the clearinghouse for the funding through this Medicaid self-direction funding have stopped approving some of the classes at Snack and some of the other providers, the JCC, because the classes, there's guidelines of how you are eligible for this reimbursement dollars, and some of it is there were too many disabled people in the class.
Too many disabled people in the class.
Yeah, you're not open to the public. You're segregating. Now they run all of the day habs, through the provider agencies. The day habs are definitely segregated. You can't walk into a dehabilitation program, and everybody in there is disabled. So I guess they're
Obviously.
not too disabled, but if you come out and try to do something with these privately with these, self-directed classes, they're taking exception to it now. I can't, I'm not 100% sure what the motivation is, what the agenda is. There's very clear guidelines that OPWDD themselves has issued, and they've been paying for these classes since 2014. So, a reasonable person would assume that they don't want to keep paying for this for some reason, that, since the pandemic, lots of rehabilitation programs have not reopened because of COVID. So lots of people signed up for self-direction in these last 4 years. So it's had exponential growth. And what's a way to slow down growth? Deny approval.
Let's deny approval to things that are not integrated in the community.
Well, and there's a document here and it lives on the internet. It's an Olmsted interpretation for New York State of what is integration, and it was written by one of the lead attorneys for OPWDD when Cuomo was still governor. And and I understand, we don't want everybody locked away and without choice, and I get all of that, but how are you gonna implement that? And the interpretation of Olmsted, it's funny, appropriate seems to have gotten left out. So as I'm educating myself and our families as best we can, but this we're going to have to fight. I mean, to me, it's ADA 33rd anniversary we're in right now. Our adults don't have the same protection as the school age kids do. The right to a free and appropriate education. As an adult, what do they have a right to? Nada. There's no legislation. So that's, I think, something, we all have to work on. There's got to be
Wouldn't we love to see an IDEA for adults?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't we love to see, because there should be an entitlement for people who are this severely disabled to access appropriate services.
A carve out in Medicaid, if it's not, a carve out. That's something that, I've lobbied for, and, in the sake of working with my colleagues, I've dropped it, but, that's really what we need. If, especially for our guys, I mean, there's no question as to their need.
Right.
And now with housing, I mean, obviously that's our next big hurdle as parents, how, we're going to die. We all know that. I'm so sick of talking about it.
Yeah.
The housing piece, again, there's several groups here in New York trying to put something together for kids as disabled as ours. Because the traditional group home of 6 people and 2 staff is really not appropriate in some cases. For our guys.
Yep.
And yet they just, rather than working with us and helping us, they just keep throwing barriers, well, it can't be more than 25% disabled people in the building. I'm like, why not? There's more than 25% neurotypical people in the building. I think that's reverse discrimination, I might say, but
it's absolute discrimination. I mean, this is why we have the NCSA campaign, pointing to the systemic discrimination against our population, which you don't see against any other disability population.
No, you don't. So, I think we are a tired group, and they take advantage of that. But you know what? We're getting angry now.
Yeah.
There's
as I said, people are just,
they've had it. I think the good doctor put us all over the edge. To tell you the truth, that's not autism. I mean, I know it is. I'm not dismissing that, but if people ask me, what does my son play the piano once more? I'm going to just cry. No, and he can't wipe himself. Okay. Should we get technical?
Yep. Neither can my kids.
So,
Neither can my daughter, who is severely autistic, but relatively easy. I mean, she can't even do basic preschool level functions. I mean, it's unbelievable. The amount of ignorance, wishful thinking, sugarcoating, romanticizing of autism is unbelievable. And it really betrays our kids' absolute obvious needs.
Without question. Yeah. Without question. So I see it all the time. And, we cater you know, a more challenging population, definitely in snack. That's what we welcome that. Like I said, we were created for the biters, not the bitees. You
The
can go
biters,
somewhere else.
bitey.
um, truthfully. And
Yeah.
I see the level of, you know, and it's wonderful. We call it the snack 3-week rule. We get really challenging kids. First few visits are a little bumpy, but then we get it down and they're running to come in, and, you know, they can participate. They're not falling out of the chair or trying to hurt somebody, or looking to avoid. So they have capacity to do well and to succeed and to progress. You just have to set it up right. And it's expensive. I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry. So everybody needs, it's not, I remember when I first went to New York State to ask them to help me with snack in my naive stupidity. And they said, "Oh, Jackie, you want a Cadillac for everybody. We can only give everybody a Chevy." I was like, "Well, give your kid a Chevy. My kid's getting
But
a
they didn't even have a Chevy. They didn't even have a Chevy.
They didn't even have a Chevy. You're right. Then we
So
were
what are
thrown
we
out of the
talking
Chevy.
about?
Oh, you can't come in the Chevy. You have too great need, you know, just so, but it's 20 years later, and I'm sorry to say, there should be a hell of a lot more programs like snack. There's a lot more programs, but not for our kids. They won't take our kids. I'm still one of the few.
Listen, I'm here in the Bay Area, and there are basically, and this is a wealthy, educated, you know, progressive area, blah, blah, blah.
I'm New York City,
basically there's like no programs that take kids like my son. Like
Imagine.
zero, there's no snack. So I don't know, maybe I'm the one who's gonna start snack SF.
Well, I'll tell you, when I did look at replication, and the model that I found the most that would work was Paul Newman's hole in the wall camps. And one of his spokes to making his programming successful is you got to have a parent. You got to have if there's going to be a snack elsewhere, there's got to be a parent who gets it like we do involved. Otherwise, it's just another professional who, you know, doesn't get it, and they mean well.
You have to be completely mission driven.
Without question, for this end, because it is hard as hell. I mean, and our kids, they're difficult. They're difficult on a facility. I mean, the amount of, I've replaced toilet bowls more than is, I mean, I'm like, what the hell? You know, a kid has a seizure on a toilet, things going down, you know, it's out. It's unbelievable. So they break everything. And, you know, it's so
complex and expensive and stressful.
Oh,
I mean,
please.
That's why there's only one Jackie Ceonzo in the world, because who wants to take that on? I mean, it's so hard. But I want to ask you about money though for a second. So, you know, you said you do charge people. I want to say something. You are right to charge people, like you know, SF Autism Society. Remember, I told you I run all these events. Most of the stuff we do is free, but the attrition rate is huge. You don't get that buy-in. And so sometimes we just charge like $3 for an event just to get like that little buy-in. It
makes
doing
a big
free
difference.
stuff can be very difficult. Now, but you said you had to do fundraising. Obviously you have a deficit, right? You get some funding through waiver money, but you still have this big delta.
Right.
What do you do to raise that money? Can I ask?
Yeah, absolutely. Our budget, I mean, we're all up on GuideStar. I mean, I share everything. You know, we just hit 2.2 million in revenue. My problem is my expenses are like 2.3. That's where you got a slight hitch. You know, we make it all work, but the fees cover about half. As I said, that's our goal and that's our intention. And then the other half we fundraise. So of that that's about $1 million we've been raising annually for, you know, close to 8 years as we've grown. So of that $1 million, half of it is our own events. We have, you know, a gala and a golf outing and just our regular drives, you know, our appeals. The other 500,000 comes from grantors. And, you know, we get multi-year awards. There isn't a grantor that comes to Snack that doesn't give us money. If you come to see it, you can't not help. Right. You can't not help but to write a check.
Right. You know, you're making a real difference. Yeah.
they get it. I mean,
Yeah.
any really, any organization that's a foundation that gives money to autism programs knows the tremendous void and knows what we're doing is just so necessary. So, but it's hard, I'm sweating it out. People say to me, you're crazy. What if you don't get the money? I'm like, well, then we got to scale back. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
So, we do, but it is very stressful. Isn't many a night I don't sleep,
Oh yeah.
but I've never not made a payroll, never.
Wow.
Maybe a little
Well,
later
yeah,
on.
that's amazing. You're juggling a lot. It's amazing. I wish we could clone you and just put you
I wish we could clone
everywhere.
you.
Little Jackie's everywhere.
I don't know how my
but
husband would feel about that. It's one Jackie's enough.
one's enough. Well, yeah. Well, as I was telling you people, all you listeners, Jackie is an absolute goddess in the pantheon. And I hope now that you've heard her story, that you will 100% agree with me. I mean, honestly, forget the Nobel Prize for physics. We need the Nobel Prize for autism services. And
Thank
you would
Jill.
be a winner. So,
Hey, I
so
wish everybody would sign up for our coffee of the month, or at least buy a cup of Joe. It's on our
yeah,
website. This
I'm
way,
going to sign up. I'm going on right now. Do you have decaf?
sure.
Okay, well,
We've got
there you have a
decaf,
new
we've got
customer.
beans, we've got, the only thing we don't have are K-cups, but we give you a free, like reusable one, so you
Oh,
can
okay.
make your own. So that's, it's great. It's a great gift, when you're going to somebody's house, instead of bringing a bag of wine, you buy a bottle of wine, you bring a bag of coffee. It's great. And it helps really support the cause. So, and it's easy way to do it. So we appreciate it.
Maybe your next business is to make snacks. You mean Snack NYC,
We've
snacks
thought
from a
about
Snack
that.
NYC.
Well, snack is
There's
actually an
a lot of
acronym.
money in snacks.
You bet. You should see all the emails that we get, cold. They all think I'm either a pretzel company or they don't get that what we are. But it's actually an acronym for Special Needs Activity Center for Kids. And then we added an asterisk as we got to the adults. But there's a whole movement, much like we've talked about with the integration and what have you, where we are no longer the Special Needs Activity Center for Kids. We're just Snack, because people like special needs, people don't really want to hear that. We're here. Okay. You don't want to hear it, but so, all right.
Call it whatever you want. It's not going to change it.
Exactly. A
You
rose
can
is a
dress
rose
it up
is a
in any
rose.
suit, but the body inside has not changed. Yeah.
Exactly. Another frustrating, but we'll work our way through it. I think, listen, we're East Coast, you're West Coast. We get all of our folks rallying around all this. The legislation has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are a true inspiration to us, Jackie. I wish I had 10 more hours to talk to you, but people go to snacknyc.com and learn more about their program. And Jackie, maybe you can send me, if you want anything else in the show notes that you want people to know, let me know. Otherwise, I will just include the link in the show notes. But thank you so much. You're a super busy person. It was so wonderful to talk to you. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, this is one of my favorite interviews ever. Because I love talking to people who do real stuff.
I know.
Who really move the needle.
A lot of people talk about a lot of stuff. You're doing great stuff too.
There's so many talkers in the world. I mean, 99% of autism is like talk, complain. And you're somebody who's really doing something. And like, I just love it.
Gets me into trouble sometimes. I kind of jump in head first and sign 10-year leases and think about it, the money afterwards. But it's got to be done.
It's got to be done. And sometimes we churn here at Autism Society about like, do we do this? And like, sometimes it's like better done than good, and better good than perfect.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of that.
Sometimes you just have to change your mentality. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And
hopefully
this will be up on Monday, July 31st. It'll be up on YouTube before that.
Terrific.
All right. Signing off. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jill. Be well.